Mike from Cyberfueled IT here, and I've got a topic that I want to talk about, and that is older GPUs and if they're still valid in 2025. So, essentially, with all the GPU craziness right now, getting your hands on a graphics card is incredibly difficult and also incredibly expensive, whether it's purchasing it through actual retail store, online, whatever it may be, or even third party. Graphics card prices have gone through the roof, making PC building extremely frustrating and painful all at the same time. So I wanted to take a look at older video cards and if they're still worthwhile in 2025. So for me, I have an older video card. Technically, I've got two, but one still holds its value for the most part. But I've got a 1660 here in our test rig with an AMD 7700X, so an AM5 with 32 gigs of memory. And I wanted to kind of give it the rundown to see if it's still valid in some newer titles today, being that it's roughly 6 years old. It just turned 6. This card was released March 14th of 2019. So it's just turned 6 years old as of March, literally as of 4 days ago. And wanted to see how well it compares with modern titles. Now, some of the games I think will run pretty well. Some of the games, I don't know if they're going to run very well or not. All of the games tested, though, do have a minimum spec requirement of at least, a 1000 series card. I'm not going to be testing anything that doesn't have at least the minimum requirements because obviously it's not going to run. But with the 1660, and this is just the 1660, it's not the Super, it's not the TI. These cards were actually kind of in between the launch of the 2000 series. So they're actually based on the Turing architecture, which is the 2000 series NVIDIA cards. So we're going to take a deep dive into this and see exactly, how it's performing in modern titles. And then on top of that, I want to look at the current price of these cards, see if they're still going for retail, because I think they retailed for around 220-ish to 300, depending on the brand. This one was an EVGA, and I'm pretty sure it was close to $300 when I picked it up a while back now. So very curious to see exactly how it's going to perform. So the games that I've chosen, they're all different facets of games. Now, disclaimer, I'm not running on Windows right now. This test rig is currently set up for Bazzite, which is a Linux operating system. It's a distro of Fedora, essentially. So this will be running in Linux with the latest version drivers that we have for NVIDIA that's available in Linux. But there shouldn't be much of a performance difference between here and Windows. If anything, they should be pretty much equal. It's all going to be running through Steam using ProtonDB. So we'll take a look at I think we're going to take a look at Elden Ring, see how Elden Ring performs. We'll take a look at Space Marine 2, see how that performs. Path of Exile 2, Last Epoch, and Starfield. So we'll take a look at those 5 games, see how they perform. What the average FPS is. Is this card still able to run modern titles 6 years down the road? Now, it does only support 6 gigs of VRAM, so there will be probably some issues with VRAM. There's a baby over there. So there will be probably some issues with VRAM, but we'll break all that down. But before we do anything, let's take a look at the card as to when it came out in 2019. And when it came out in 2019, let's take a look at those specs, and we'll go from there. For those that aren't aware, Tech Power Up is a great site to take a look at their GPU database. So if you're not familiar with Tech Power Up, go check them out. They keep a running pretty much benchmarks and logs of all the video cards that they do testing on. So it's a great place to kind of check out video cards and see what their launch was at price and their power draw and all that stuff. So quick glance, this video card came out 6 years ago. Again, March 14th, 2019 was the actual release date down here. Again, it was based on the Turing architecture, which is exactly what the GeForce 20 series cards were. It launched at a $220 price point, which was actually pretty good back then, especially for 1080p gaming. Again, this is definitely focusing on 1080p. It's not focusing on 1440 or 4K by any means. And yeah, I mean, it was a launch in between the 10 series and the 20 series. It was kind of like this mid-series launch that they did. And Tech Power Up keeps a really good kind of just list of everything. So TDP was 120 watts overall. So very, very, low wattage card. Your suggested PSU was only 300 watts. And again, it only came with a DVI and HDMI and a display port. So not a lot of outputs. And again, it was a one 8-pin connector. So nothing super crazy. It did support DirectX 12, which is kind of a big thing that you need these days. But you're not going to get anything that's super crazy on these cards compared to like the 20 series and, any of the AI tops that are all out there today. So that is a quick look at the GTX 1660. Now, there were two other variants of this. There was a 1660 Super and a 1660 Ti, which definitely got some better performance, but this is the one I'm testing, unfortunately, is just the 1660. There's no Ti or Super variant that I have. As for current pricing for this card is actually, it looks like it's still being sold. From a brand new perspective, they've got a few of them listed over here, 269, 299, 365, and 365. Whatever you do, this isn't a video to go out and buy this card by any means whatsoever. I would not spend 365 on this card. There are much better options for that price range nowadays. We'll look at the used market, which is kind of crazy. The whole purpose of this video is just kind of see, hey, where does this card sit today? Is it still viable? If you needed something in a pinch, or if you're building a PC and you can get by with 1080p gaming temporarily, where is it going to get you in your titles, and kind of going from there. So again, do not go out and spend this money for this. You can most likely get one used a lot cheaper. But yeah, this is just kind of funny that they're still selling this for 365 when you can get definitely some other options out there for that price point. In case in point, just a quick look on eBay. It looks like there are some video cards available for about $90 if you needed one of these, from a 6 gig perspective. Again, this looks like it's a $30 box, but it is what it is. But yeah, go ahead and, if you needed something, test card, whatever it is, definitely can grab one of these. They're about $100. Which isn't terrible considering the way the market is right now. But yeah, just fun to see what we've got out there. All right. So that's kind of the rundown from the video card itself. Let's go ahead and take a look at those first few benchmarks, and let's start off with Elden Ring. All right. So here we have Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring is capped at 60 frames per second. I do not have the mod to unlock it at this time, but honestly, I don't think we need it with this card, depending on, the age of this card and everything. But let's go ahead and take a look at the graphics settings real quick. So inside of the system settings, just to get a quick rundown, we are running everything at maximum outside of anti-aliasing. Motion blur, let's go ahead and turn that off because motion blur is no bueno. So everything else is set to maximum or high, which is perfectly fine. Let's go back here. 1920 by 1080. We've got auto detect for best rendering, which is fine. And here we go. So here is Elden Ring. I guess those wolves are pretty good. I'm very bad at Elden Ring. I'm also playing on a mouse and keyboard, which I'm not a big fan of. For some reason, my controller doesn't want to connect today. Oh, when in doubt, replug the controller in. Let's try this again. Oh my god, those wolves hurt a lot. I'm just gonna run away. They're too strong for me. Oh, lots of wolves. Lots and lots of wolves. Called reinforcements. Who's this guy? Ooh. Ow. Oh, one hit wonder. Okay. I'm dead. All right, so there's Elden Ring. For the most part, plays pretty well. I'm just an awful player, by all means. Okay. Next game up on the list is Path of Exile 2. If you haven't heard of this, this is a very, very, very popular ARPG. Very similar to last Epoch and very similar to Diablo 4. Just with its own spin on things. So, very popular. Options. Let's take a look at the resolution because it's the first time firing it up. All right, so we're going to be running with high, which is the default, 8x, shadows and global, shadow GI, it's fine. Water detail, NVIDIA reflexes off. Target frame rate, we will bump it up to 120 because that is the max that this screen can do. And sure, we'll save it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in. I have not played this in quite some time. It's been a long time since I played this. Ooh, I did not want to go back in the town portal. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good run through here so far. Open his basket, get a few things. Yeah, so this seems to be running average 73 FPS, 1% lows around 40 cents. That's not too bad. Not too bad.
The virus bomb. Damn it. Moving to... Lost contact with brother. Approaching orbital launcher facility. Well secured. Hellstroth, Alpha! I'm moving to the crash site. Do you read? Any sign of the commander? Negative. No contact since the crash. I'm here, damn it! Hellstroth, you have command. What are your orders? We proceed as planned. Launch the virus bomb into the stratosphere, detonate it, and watch the Tyranids die. The sight I will greatly enjoy. Transmitter must be broken. Homicans. The area will be crawling with them. Darius, brother, I will repay them tenfold. This bolter will roar in your name, Darius. I swear on it. Come, vermin! I should be picking these rotten seals out of my fangs for weeks. Situation here at the launcher is becoming severe. Have you secured the virus bomb? Death will not go unpunished. will strip your flesh from your bones.
watch over you. Gods.
I cannot do that. Vengeful rhyme! Frozen steel! Vengeful rhyme! Frozen steel!
Gods be with you. Keep them off me. Impressive.
All right. So there we have it. There are 5 games that I picked. We've got Elden Ring, Space Marine 2, Path of Exile, Starfield, and Last Epoch. So I'm going to take a look at the results here. I did run some very simplistic graphs with Mango HUD and Bazzite. So taking a looking at Elden Ring here. So Elden Ring averaged around 57 frames with 1% lows of 47. And then you had a high spike at 63, which makes sense because this is capped at 60 frames per second. Overall, outside of me being a terrible Elden Ring player, the game ran surprisingly well with the 1660, and it looked great as well. So no issues that I can see there. Moving on to Space Marine 2. So this was one that I was a little surprised that it was actually running, but it actually ran incredibly smooth. So I played for a good 30 minutes, getting to the intro mission. First time playing it too, so it was actually a lot of fun. I'm going to circle back and play that. But it averaged about 39 frames with the highs of around 65, and then 1% lows were just around 30. So, for a 1660 with 6 gigs of VRAM, playing Space Marine 2, and it was that smooth, even at 1080p, didn't really experience any hitching or any large spikes, nothing like that. It ran relatively smooth. So that one was definitely surprising and shocking for me. But overall, definitely surprised. I thought that was going to be trouble. So well optimized for what they've done, and hats off to the devs for that one. All right, next up was Path of Exile 2. So this averaged around 94 frames. We had some lows at around 46, and it did have some high points around 154. But for the most part, averaging around 94 frames on Path of Exile 2. Again, no crazy issues on Path of Exile 2. I didn't get any crazy spikes. It, ran relatively smooth as I played through it. Again, take a look at the footage, opinions, graphics for that one. I think we're set to medium or high. So again, very well optimized for what they've got so far. Obviously, it's not super graphically intensive, but once you start getting those mobs on the screen, it can kind of slow down. All right, moving over to Starfield. So Starfield, again, very playable, averaging 53 frames. 1% were at 35 for the lows, and there was a couple spikes of 165, and that's primarily due to being in the menus, I think, when this started recording. So obviously, I think it's more around that 53 frames average, given that take. I saw it dip down to, the 40s, sometimes went up to the 60s, depending on what you're doing, but very playable. Again, Starfield is relatively newer. Obviously not as hyped up as Skyrim, but overall, still a fun title, good Bethesda title for the most part. Then again, people have their opinions on that. And last but not least was Last Epoch. Again, Last Epoch, very similar to Path of Exile, had an average of 71 frames. And again, lows were 36, and then 105 were some of those spikes up there, probably in the menus and stuff like that. Now, there were a few issues with Last Epoch that I realized. One was the VRAM, I think, was spiked at almost full usage of around 6 gigs when playing through that. So if I take a look back at the footage for that, I am pretty sure that VRAM is around 5.8 to 5.9 gigs. So it's pegging that VRAM across the board for that card. So definitely utilizing it to its fullest potential for that card. But overall, it ran relatively well. There were a couple hiccups here and there where I would get a random just lag spike, so to speak. And usually it was when I was tabbing in and out of the menu. And I usually don't see that when I play on my other rig. So I'm not sure if it's just related to the Linux OS and how this is kind of being translated over with Linux and all that stuff. So those are the results that we had. So yeah. All right, so there you guys have it. There's 5 games that we tested with the results, and to be honest, pretty impressed that the 1660 was able to hold its own in all of those titles. Some of those titles are not as graphically as intense, but some of them are. Space Marine 2 is not one of those titles that you'd expect to probably get a 6-year-old card to run between low and medium settings. It is a pretty heavily graphics intensive title, and it ran smooth. I was able to play the entire intro mission without any drop frames, really, any hitching, any stuttering. Does it look the greatest? No. Is it playable? Yeah, it's It's perfectly playable. Even if you probably adjust some of those settings some more, maybe you can squeeze out some more frames. But we're able to get some pretty decent frames for the most part, where it was a considerably playable experience. You're not getting all the high fidelity graphics that you want, but that might be a sacrifice you need to make temporarily until the graphics prices come down. Now, bottom line with this card is I would not buy this outright. If you need to get something in a pinch as a backup card, you can definitely grab one of these and play 1080p games. If you're sporting something like a 1440p monitor, just play at 1080p, call it a day. Do not spend retail price for this at $365. There are better options, for about $150 more. If 9070s ever come around, that'll blow this thing out of the water for $155 difference. So do not go out and spend a ton of money on this thing. This whole video is not to spend money on this card, but it's to look back and say, hey, is this still a viable competitor? One game I am going to try later and be curious, probably work better than the 5080, is Borderlands 2. We'll take a look at that one probably a little bit later, because Borderlands 2 still uses physics on it, and my understanding is that 5080, they killed physics. Way to go, NVIDIA. Way to go. Anyway, that's all we got for this video today, so really appreciate if you guys made it all the way to the end. Like, subscribe, share the video out if you want. If there's any other titles you want me to test on the 1660 while I have it up, currently it is going to be using the Linux machine over there. It's going to be using Bazzite for the next couple of weeks. So if you want to see any other titles tested in Bazzite, let me know before it gets wiped out, and it's going to be installed with Arch Linux so for some further testing, which is probably what it's going to stay on for a while, as I got some other videos with streaming and peripherals and stuff coming up as well. So especially from the Linux environment. But if there's anything else, chime down below in the comments, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.